So the topic for the day is key performance indicators and benchmarking. These two are the two aspects, or these belong to the aspect of quality system from where the learning begins. So whenever we have a quality system, and like we have covered in previous presentations, that a quality system will essentially do some kind of measurements. Those measurements will give us information. That information is sometimes codified in the form of key performance indicators. So these key performance indicators tell us about our performance in key areas. We can have performance indicators for every aspect of our functioning in the hospital, but a key performance indicator is one where it is giving you information about a key process, a process which has large number of dependent processes on it, and a process which is dependent on many other processes. So when we select a key performance indicators, which gives us a wide-ranging information about our quality system, that would be called a key performance indicators. I have muted all the participants, because essentially to ensure that the clarity in the audio is there. If someone has a question in between, you have the option of asking the question at that moment itself by unmuting your mic and asking the question. The other option is that you note your question and ask in the end of towards the end of the presentation. So that there are two ways we can interact. So as I was talking, the key performance indicators are the ones which cover the key aspects of hospital functioning, and therefore they give us important information about how the hospital is performing. The benchmark is essentially a tool for or a method for comparison. So we will see how the benchmark is utilized for the purpose of the quality system in the hospitals. So let me begin. So let us, before we get on to the key performance indicators, let us see what is an indicator. So indicator is a statistical measure of performance of functions, systems, or processes over time. So you'll see most of the indicators will pertain to a time duration. They will have a time dimension. Whether the time is being measured in those indicators or not, it is a different thing, but they will always have a time dimension. So for example, we have an indicator which is called the hand hygiene. And when we say that in our hospital, the hand hygiene compliance is 79%, then we say that the 79% pertains to the first quarter, that is January to March of this year, or a particular period of time. There can be some indicators which are measuring time. So let us say a waiting time, or door to natal time, or any manner of measuring time. So even those indicators which are measuring time will also have a time dimension as to the period to which they belong. So a time dimension is important, and an indicator is a statistical measure which tells us how a particular process or how a particular function is performing. So needless to say, when we say it is performing well, obviously we have to have a method by which we know what is this quote unquote well. When we say a process is doing well or it is performing well, for example, hand hygiene. So when we say we have a very good compliance to hand hygiene in our hospital, what does it mean? I mean, does it mean that the compliance is 100%? Does it mean it is 80%? So we have to, when we see indicators, we have to also figure out what is it that will tell us that this performance level is good or not so good. So that is achieved by the benchmarks. We will come to that subsequently. So there may be thousands of indicators, performance indicators, but among these there are some which are called vital. They need attention of the policymakers. They need attention of sometimes the public. Let's say, for example, when we are measuring the number of COVID-19 cases, that's an indicator which is of the importance not only to the public but to the government and to the health system. So you can have large number of indicators depending on who's measuring and for what purpose. for what purpose it is being done, but the ones which are used by the policymakers, by the management for improving the system, that would be called the key performance indicators. Now, even what is key will depend on the person who is trying to look at the indicators. So, when you have a person, for example, a policymaker looking at revenue, so he will have a different key indicators. But when you are the chairman of infection control committee, and when you are looking at the infection indicators, that view is totally different. So there is a need to develop, interpret, and monitor the key performance indicators in the hospital. And this is what we are going to cover as to how to design a indicator and what is it that we call a key performance indicator. Okay, so the structures and processes and outcomes for clinical, managerial, infection control, patient safety activities, patient satisfaction, and patient reported outcomes. So these are the categories of indicators that we have when we talk about indicators in reference to a quality system. We are strictly looking at the quality system as of now, and we are looking at the indicators of the okay. So why do we need a KPI? Why do we need a key performance indicators? So we have seen in past, and when we design a quality system, we also have many of us who have done that would know that once an organization has analyzed its mission and defined its goals, then there is a need to measure the progress towards that goal. Whether as an organization, as an institution, as a hospital, we are able to progress in that direction, which is the defined direction for ourselves. So if we want to provide, we want to achieve excellence, we want to provide accessibility, we want to provide good quality services. So these will possibly be the goals, and we will need indicators to tell us whether we are progressing towards those goals or not. The KPIs assist an organization to define and measure the progress towards the goals and objectives that have been determined by the top management of the organization. And they also provide a measurement goal. Okay. So this is the process of creating a KPI. Now, let me state at this stage that whenever we are working in a quality system and that quality system is implemented in order to achieve compliance to accreditation standard, whichever accreditation standards we're looking at, those accreditation standards would have determined the KPIs for the organization. However, the organization can have more KPIs than what the accreditation system requires. Typically, the accreditation systems, for example, NABH or JCI or even NAPL or NQAS, they tell you that these are the indicators they would need the hospital to monitor. But the hospitals, in addition to these indicators, usually will also monitor the indicators pertaining to the financial parameters for the hospital or maybe many other parameters that the management may require. So what is the process of creating those KPIs, those key performance indicators we are now discussing. So these are the steps. Obviously, we need to know why we are measuring a particular process, for example, hand hygiene or COTI or WAP or SSI or the performance of the staff in mock drills or many of those indicators. We need to outline the criteria. So what will be the criteria for inclusion? So if you have infection control example, if you take, you have the NSHN criteria, parameters for including or calling a patient as HAI. If you take the hand hygiene requirements, then hand hygiene has its own set of criteria. If you look at facility safety, we look at radiation safety, you look at lab safety. So each of these each of these domains will have their own criteria, which will be utilized for creating a particular KPI, which will pertain to those areas. The next is collecting the data. Of course, that is the basic step in the measurement. and then we build our formulas and we present our KPIs. So we will see this in little more details as we go along. So let's go to the first step of developing the KPIs. So before we decide and before we jump onto a particular KPI for our institution, we have to decide these elements of each KPI that we are measuring. Now, typically, this is not done in the hospitals. Why? Because we singularly focus on the KPIs that are required by the accreditation system. So, if you have NABH in your hospital, then you will just look at the indicators given by NABH and measure those indicators. If you have implemented NABL in your lab, then you just look at that and then look at those indicators. If you have JCI, then JCI will say that, okay, monitor these indicators. But so many of us are not actually developing the KPIs. However, once we understand the development process, that is where we realize how an indicator is going to contribute to our performance improvement or quality improvement activities. So let's look at this. I hope this is visible because the text might look little small. At least in my slide, it is looking small. Is this readable, legible for everyone? Is the text legible?
Yes, sir.
So some people need to confirm because I have no way to know whether it is legible to you.
Yes, yes, it is legible.
Okay. So let us, the first element of deciding a KPI or developing a KPI is deciding a title. The NABH gives you ready-made titles, but you have to decide what will be the title. And that title must indicate or must very clearly state what is it that this indicator is going to measure. So when you say the COTI rates or hand hygiene compliance rates, or when you say the average length of stay, or when you say waiting time, each of these titles tell you very clearly what this indicator is going to measure. Then of course we need to have a short description of the measurement. So of the KPI, so what is it that this KPI is measuring? And what will be the defined target population? So, for example, when you say COTI, then you're talking about all those patients who have indwelling catheter and who have completed 48 hours from the point of time where the catheter was inserted. So, that is how the target population has to be defined. For example, when you are measuring the patient satisfaction for your outpatient, then you will say that all patients who avail services in the OPD or the outpatient department of the hospital, they will be included in the target population. If you are evaluating, let's say, hand hygiene, then your target population will not be people, but the target population will be the number of total opportunities where the hand hygiene should have been performed. So likewise, we have to define the target population for every indicator that we are going to implement or going to design. The next is the rationale for having this indicator. Now, every indicator, we must remember that when we collect data will involve putting man hours, putting effort to collect that data. You will need staff to do that. You will need, obviously, those staff are being paid for that time. The resources will be utilized for collecting that data, and therefore we need to know very clearly why we are collecting this particular KPI and why are we measuring it. Unless we are clear about it, the outcome of that particular KPI, for example, let's say a waiting time. A waiting time in the pediatric OPD in the hospital is an indicator that the hospital has defined. Now, unless we are in a position to know why are we measuring it, if this indicator tells us something which we don't like, then are we in a position to do something about it? And if we can do something about it, then it's a good idea to measure, because then that will lead to improvement. But if you can do nothing about it, then possibly investing so much of effort and then finally reaching a point where we cannot do the improvement, then it is not going to help. So that justification, the rationale is important. And of course, every KPI will also require some amount of allocated resources for it. So that becomes the another aspect that needs to be kept in mind. Then the performance, the target performance level for that KPI has to be defined. And this is what we'll call benchmark, and we'll discuss it separately. Then we need a formula. So whether the KPI will be a mere counting numbers. So then we don't need to calculate. For example, you can say that in the quarter of January to March, or in the first half of this year, the number of sentinel events were 3 or 0. This is an absolute number, does not require any calculation, and it's just been measured by counting the number of sentinel events in that particular defined period. But when you need something like calculated information, like the hand hygiene percentages, or the COTI rates, or the infection rates, or the success rates. So those things will require some amount of, or some kind of calculation, and these calculations will need a formula. This formula needs to be figured out and defined very early in the at this stage in the development of the KPI. So this formula will typically have a numerator and a denominator and a multiplication factor. So the indicators which are expressed as the ratios, the number of the male-female patients attending the OPDs, so that will be in terms of ratios. So those may not require a multiplication factor, but those which are presented as the percentages, like the hand hygiene compliance is so much of percent, or the COTI is so much of this thing, then they will require a multiplication factor, and depending on what is the multiplication factor will determine what is the presentation of that indicator. So for example, you may say that the COTI rate is 10 per 1000, or 10%, so per 100. So like that, so 1000 or 100, that has to be figured out. Then we also need to have the criteria for inclusion and exclusion for counting those numerator and the denominator. So denominator is typically the target population, so that we would have covered in the point number 2. But the point number, the numerator will be the key to measurement. And when we say that, let us take for example the example of hand hygiene. So the denominator will be the total number of opportunities where the hand hygiene should have been performed, and the numerator will be the number of times the hand hygiene was actually performed, and the multiplication factor will be 100. So it gives you percentage. So you will say that hand hygiene compliance is, when you say 65%, which means 65 opportunities out of 100 which were there, in 65 opportunities the hand hygiene compliance was correctly done. Then we need to define the data sources, so from where the data will come. If this is defined well, the data collection team will find it very easy to collect data. If this is not defined, then you will find a lot of effort goes into training people as to from where to get this data, which record to see, whether it be the computer or patient record, patient file, registers, wherever. Then what is the data collection frequency? Simple to understand. This also we need to figure out. Comparison. So if there is a comparison, for example, this can be an international comparison. So typically the government public health data is compared internationally. So you say that the infant mortality rate of our country is this much in compared to the developed countries, or even within country we say that infant mortality rate in this state is this much and the other state is this much, and that is used for the purpose of interventions. You can also have comparison within your hospital group. So if it is a chain of hospitals, it's a group of 10 hospitals or 20 hospitals, data can be compared. So you can say COTI rate in this hospital vis-a-vis COTI rate in that hospital. You can say the average length of stay for a particular diagnosis or disease group in this hospital, and the ALS for similar patients in the other hospital. So that will be the comparison that has to be established. Next will be, who is responsible for monitoring? This I find is an area which requires clarity in a lot of hospitals, even those which are already accredited and have been accredited for some time. So when you do not define who is responsible for monitoring, you will end up having a situation where your quality team, those 2 or 3 people are running all over the countryside, all over the hospital, trying to collect data for each of these indicators. It's a good idea to define who is responsible for monitoring this particular indicator. And it is always a good idea to give this role to those people who are responsible for maintaining performance levels in that area. So your infection control data should ideally be collected by the monitored by the infection control committees. Your pharmacy related will be by the pharmacy committee or by the pharmacotherapeutics committee or the drugs committee. You will have for example, information about, let us say, the SSI. Now, who will measure the SSI, the surgical site infection rate? So you have to see that the people who are responsible for measuring are the ones who are involved in performance improvement, and that will help. The other view is that you can have a centralized control as to one person or two people or a team responsible. That also can be done, but this needs to be defined at the stage of defining or designing a KPI. The next three elements are the reporting frequency. So first we saw the recording frequency, now it is reporting frequency. So the difference between the two is, for example, you are doing the surveillance of the operation theatre and you are measuring the temperature, humidity, air changes, and the pressure on a daily basis, but you are reporting it to the infection control committee on a monthly basis. So recording is daily, reporting is monthly. Similarly, your data capture for infection may be on a daily basis, but the infection control committee is looking at it on a monthly basis or on a quarterly basis, unless of course there is a different reason. So if you have a epidemic or something that has happened in the hospital, then obviously they will look at it more frequently. Then the reporting manner. So whether it is reported independently or it is a part of a report. So let us say infection surveillance in the ICU. Now the infection control committee can look at each element of infection surveillance in the ICU as an independent bit of data, and so they will say, okay, every day you will monitor and every day you will tell us what is the measurement for the day. The other option is that they don't get into the daily monitoring, but they say, okay, it will be monitored daily, maintained daily, but every month a summary will be made and that summary will be given to the infection control committee. So this is a manner that needs to be decided for each of the KPIs. The next one is the additional information. So sometimes you will have additional information, for example, the data that is pertaining to the PCPNDT Act, that has to be reported to the certain authority at the district level. If you have the data which is pertaining to the radiation safety, then that needs to be given to the ARB. Data that pertains to the biomedical waste has to be given to the state or the district pollution control board or the committee. So like that, these additional information as to what additional is required for this particular KPI, this needs to be recorded. So these 12 elements are the ones which define and which help us in creating the KPI system that is most beneficial for the hospital. So what are the attributes of a well-designed key performance indicators? So these are the ones. That it should help us, it should help the decision makers to establish a baseline information. So it should tell us about the current state of performance. It should set performance indicators and performance standards and targets to motivate improvement. So the KPI must have a benchmark. So if we are performing at, let us say, 70%, a benchmark requires us to go to 95%. So we know that we have 25 percentage points to improve. The measurement, they measure and they report improvements over time. So KPI should measure and should report the improvements over time. So we should be able to state that the hand hygiene compliance in this hospital in the month of or in the quarter of January to March was 59%, and then we made some interventions, and then the next quarter, April to June, it improved from 59 to 75%, and in the next quarter, it improved from 75% to 80%. So like that should tell us improvement over time. The benchmark performance against the regional and the international peers or norms. So this is something which is not very well established because there are no set benchmarks or fixed benchmarks. So you'll have to really see how you're going to compare. Typically, a comparison is always done between two hospitals which are of similar design, similar scope of service, and similar level of services. So this needs a little bit of thinking and a little bit of discussion within the team to figure out how the comparison will be done. We will see some part of this benchmarking process when we cover benchmarks. And then the KPI should allow the stakeholders to independently judge performance. now this will be in terms of the third-party assessments. So when you say, for example, the data of the biomedical waste management, so the district authorities who are responsible for monitoring this data will be able to say that so-and-so hospital is doing well in terms of biomedical waste management, and this hospital is not doing well because their data is indicating otherwise. Similarly, you can have your success rates of procedures. So this can be utilized by the patients to take decisions and in the consent processes as to whether they should go for this. So when you say that the success rate for your procedure is this much, this helps the patients in taking decisions whether they should go for this particular procedure in this hospital. These are little complex and contentious areas because how much to disclose, when to disclose, how to disclose are the points that need to be figured out. But this helps the other stakeholders in judging the performance. So this is one of the ways by which we can know that a particular KPI has been designed well. Okay, so these are the characteristics of the good indicators. All of us have seen this term called SMART. So indicator has to be specific. That we have covered in that table when we decided the elements of various KPIs. So it should convey at a glance what is the meaning, how the measurement is derived, and it should communicate clearly to the stakeholders. It should be measurable. Obviously, if we can't measure it, then there is no point in doing it. Then it should be achievable. This we have covered. That's something where we can do intervention and make improvement. It should be relevant to our functioning. This is obvious because unless it is relevant to our functioning, there is no point measuring that particular information. For example, if you are a new hospital, your hospital has been established just 3 months back, and you have nice big wide open spaces, and there is the waiting area is sufficient. The load is not much, so your waiting times are also pretty good. People are not having to wait for a long time. Then your wait time indicators, if you are measuring and if you are investing too much of time in measuring your wait time indicators, then they may not be relevant to you. But yes, if this indicator is required by the quality system, maybe you have no choice but to measure it. But the relevancy is important factor to see. And of course, time bound. So time factor we have already discussed. Time bound is important. Now, this is one aspect that we sometimes ignore, selecting and deselecting a particular indicator. The indicators which are mandated by some external agency, the accreditation body, JCI or NABH, they tell you that you monitor these many indicators. The government tells you that you monitor this indicator. The local district health authorities tell you you monitor this indicator. Or you are monitoring certain indicators as part of your clinical trial program or your research requirements. So those requirements are dictated by external entities. And obviously, when they are dictated by external entities, the choice of stopping monitoring those indicators may not be there. But the indicators which you have figured out yourself and you are monitoring for the purpose of looking at the performance of the hospital, these indicators, when they have served their purpose, continued. Basically, because each of these indicators is consuming your resources and your effort for measuring it. So if the indicator is not helping you, then obviously the time has come to deselect that particular indicator. Okay, now what are the types of indicators? So these are the types of indicators. You have quantitative indicators that give you a number. So you have patient satisfaction, training feedback, infection rates. You have qualitative indicators. So these cannot be numbers. For example, when you evaluate a particular process and then you say, okay, whether the process was performed well or not performed well, or it was completed or not completed. Checklists typically are the qualitative indicators. Then you have leading indicators which will help you in predicting the outcome of a particular activity. So all your quality assurance indicators, safety audits, behavioral audits, they are the ones which tell you that if these things are in place, then your outcome will be good. So it is a leading indicator. It is helping you predict the outcome of a particular activity. For example, if your crash cards are well stocked, your Code Blue team is well trained, you have all the formats in place, you have practiced the Code Blue well, and you are monitoring whether they are practicing regularly or not. So these are the kind of indicators which are the leading indicators, and if you have these in place, then you know that your code blue actions will be of a good quality or a reasonable quality. So this is what an example of a leading indicator. Then you have a lagging indicator which shows the activity after it has happened. So you may have a sentinel event, you have indicators of employees absenteeism, employee satisfaction, patient satisfaction, adverse events. These are all the post, I mean the action event has happened, then they are being reported. So they are called lagging indicators. Then you have indicators to assess the quality of service delivery. So you may be looking at parameters of access or reliability or satisfaction. So these are the broad types of KPIs that we measure. And this is my favorite and also the simplest way to know whether we are monitoring our quality system appropriately or not. And this is a model of Pyramiden called structure process outcome. We have discussed on a different other occasions what a structure is, what a process is, and what the outcomes are. And you can have indicators for each of these aspects. So you have structure and related indicators, you have process related indicators, and you have outcome related indicators. I think this we have discussed on another occasion. We may not have time really to cover this, so I'm leaving it at this. So next we come to the benchmarking. Now, what exactly the benchmarking is? So healthcare benchmarking is taking a given organization's performance matrix and comparing those to a standard developed using data from other similar organizations. So please remember that a benchmark will enable comparison, and comparison will always need to be done between or among the similar organizations. You can't compare a clinic with a hospital and a hospital with a daycare facility. You have to compare a daycare with daycare. And even in that, when you are comparing daycare, then you can't possibly compare a eye hospital or eye daycare with the dialysis daycare or with the chemotherapy daycare. So you have to have likes being compared with likes, and when you have those benchmarks used for comparison, that is what we are talking about. So these are the examples. So you can say that the average length of stay in your average length of stay for PTCA patients in your hospital is 5 days, but the same for other similar hospitals is 3.6 days. So obviously your ALS is little higher, and you have to look at why it is higher. Because PTCA is typically offered as a package, and longer ALS means that you are expending more and you are charging the fixed price. So this is essentially a revenue related issue. Then you can have a QARTI rate for one hospital is 36 per thousand, for the other it is 21 per thousand. So this allows us to compare. Okay. So benchmarking answers this question, and the question that it answers is where to focus the improvement efforts to stay competitive. Now, if we compare two hospitals and we compare the benchmarks for the various indicators for various parameters, then we will know that in which all areas we are not able to perform well in comparison to similar hospitals in the vicinity or in a given geographical area. Now, this may not be. This does not mean that you are comparing your performance with something which is ideal, but this is purely for the purpose of staying competitive in that particular geographical zone. So it is comparative in nature. The purpose of the benchmarking is to improve in terms of efficiency, to improve in terms of quality of care, to improve in terms of patient safety, and to improve in terms of patient satisfaction. And to this we can add to improve in terms of patient reported outcome measures. So the process involves looking at the standards, best practices, and evidence-based practices, and then identifying the areas, potential areas for improvement. So essentially, we look at benchmarks for each of the indicators that we have figured out. Okay, sometimes the employees may be given the individual goals. So let us say you are comparing the hand hygiene, and you are working in a setup which has got multiple hospitals. So you can compare hand hygiene among the hospitals under the same group. And the employees, the staff can be given the targets. Okay, so the average, the hand hygiene compliance for most of our hospitals is about 85%, but this particular unit of this hospital has the hand hygiene compliance of only 55%. So then the staff is given this target of making the improvement, more training, more motivation, and then this serves as an improvement goal. Whenever new practices are implemented, the management must find a way to measure the progress to determine if the new benchmark is being achieved. Yes, so when you have a new cath lab that comes up, and then you want to know how you are performing, whether you're performing well in terms of other comparison with the other hospitals or other units of the same hospital group, then you can use a benchmark. Now these are the types. So what are the types of benchmark? So let us look at these types. So the first type is the internal benchmark. So when you compare departments within a hospital, when you compare divisions within the same group of hospitals, or whether you compare performance within a particular hospital, let us say performance from one care provider to another care provider. So this becomes an internal this is called an internal benchmark. So the example given here is that as a hospital administrator, if you are working in a group, then you want to compare how your Noida clinic is working in comparison to your Delhi clinic, or geographical location comparisons. The next one is a competitive comparison. So this is when you compare your matrix directly to your competitors or your peers. So you are a multi-specialty 200-bed hospital, and you want to know how well you are performing in a particular geographical area. So you compare your performance with the performance of the other similar hospitals in the same geographical area. So that geographical area can be a particular region or a district or a state. That depends on the level of or what we are trying to achieve. Then compare with a different market or in a different geographical location. This comparison is done to learn how to improve. So when you compare hand hygiene of your hospital, infection rates of your hospital, patient satisfaction rate of your hospital, patient reported outcomes of your hospital, with same parameters of a hospital in, let us say, in US or in UK or in Australia or in some other country, or let us say you are in Delhi, and obviously you are not in direct competition with any hospital which may be in Coimbatore, but the Coimbatore hospital is comparing its own performance levels using the benchmarks of a Delhi hospital. Then this is done to basically to learn and to become better. So that this is here the objective is not to look at it competitively, but also the objective is to look at it in a manner which will help us in improving. The next type of indicators, so we have seen two types now. One is the internal, the other one is a competitive benchmark. The next one is called a functional benchmark. So functional benchmarking is used to compare your organizations to those in a different industry, but having a similar matrix or a process from where we can learn. So for example, the average collection time. Now you are a pathology lab and you have a home collection facility. Now home collection of sample is similar to a home collection for many other things. Or if you are delivering medicines at home, then this delivery of medicine or the home delivery process is similar to a home delivery process of another industry. For example, either we look at Amazon or Zomato or some other such domain. And then we compare how good our home delivery process is in comparison to the home delivery process of the other industry. Similarly, you can look at the IT system downtimes, because hospitals have IT systems and the other people also have IT systems. So this will help us how good is our IT system maintenance. Similarly, you can have facility related metrics, the fire safety preparedness or the disaster management preparedness. So this allows us functional comparison with different industry. And the last one is called a generic benchmark, which is used to look beyond the data set and focus on more general processes. So for example, a process which is generally used in multiple industries and then we compare those processes with those in the hospital. So laundry is one, your F&B is another, your admission process in a hospital is one way which can be compared with other industries. Generic and functional, they may sound similar, but in functional we are looking at a specific benchmark of a specific entity. For example, you are looking at the I'll come to that screen. So if you're looking at the home delivery of or IT system downtime, then you say that IT system downtime in IT companies is this much, and in our hospital is this much. So that's a specific kind of comparison, and the generic is a little more broad based. Though they are in many aspects they will be similar. So what are the common uses? We are now inching towards the end of this presentation. So what are the common uses? So the common uses are that to record and observe the performance, and this is the benchmark is set for each indicators. The current practice is noted. The benchmark is then set at a higher level of performance, and then some intervention is made, like training or making resources available, and then a remeasurement is done. So once the maximum of performance level is improved or achieved, then either we change the benchmark or we change the indicator. That is the way to go. The next is to compare inter-unit performance. This we have already covered. Now, how does benchmark work in practice? So here is an example. So the indicator is time taken for initial assessment in emergency, and the benchmark or the target decided for this is 15 minutes. So this hospital has said that our target is 15 minutes, and they have measured for each of the month for one full year, and you can see the 15-minute benchmark is given as a red line on the graph, and then you can graphically see where the benchmark was not met, and then you can investigate those instances where the benchmark was not met to find why the benchmark was not met. So this looks very simple and similar because we have done it. We all of us do this all the time, but mechanism to reach at this level is what needed clarification, and that is what we have covered today. So in the Research Foundation at the Learners Portal that we have 3 courses which are dealing with the quality system, the Essentials of Continual Quality Management, the Hospital Quality System, and the Root Cause Analysis in Healthcare. The last one, the Root Cause Analysis in Healthcare, is a coming up course. It is not yet uploaded, but the registration we are going to open very soon, and this course will most likely be available from 20th of November this year. The Learners Portal is given here, so you can visit. I'm sure many of you are already aware of it. Next Saturday, we will have a national grand round on the end of life care. This is going to be the first of its kind event in the hospital management and in the hospital administration. We have not had a national level grand rounds, as it is a very common practice in a lot of clinical domains. So we are starting with this, and the first topic is the end of life care. We chose this because it is significant for many of us in the administration and in the clinical aspects both. The faculties for this program are Dr. Sushma Bhatnagar, who is the professor and head of the Department of Onco-Anesthesia, Pain and Palliative Care in the All India Institute of Medical Sciences, New Delhi. We have Dr. Siddharth Satpathy, who will be talking about the administrative aspects of end of life care. He is the professor and head of the Department of Hospital Administration, AIIMS, New Delhi. Dr. R.K. Mani is the Director of Strategy and Consultant Pulmonology and Critical Care at Yashoda Hospital. He is also the past president of Indian Society of Critical Care Medicine and a leading figure and leading proponent of end of life care in the country. In fact, he leads a program called Elicit End of Life Care. It's a huge movement that he is attempting to build, and he'll be one of the faculty. And we have Dr. Gayatri Palat, who is the consultant palliative medicine at MNG Institute of Oncology in Hyderabad. So with these luminaries, we have the National Grand Round. It begins on 31st October at 3 p.m. This link is given here. It has also been widely circulated. I'll request all of you to join. And with this, I complete today's presentation. I'm closing this screen share now, and we will now go to the question answers session that we have every time we have this program. So the questions are welcome. It is good to see that we have close to 70, how many? 73 people, I think, maximum were present, and some people have a connectivity issue, so they keep quitting and joining back. I guess that's the technology problem that we can't solve from here. But it's very nice to see such a large group, and we are doing this essentially to ensure that we share our experiences and also a few things. So now let me look at the questions. I'll request all of you who want this presentation to put your email ID in the chat box. The email ID it will be used for sending the PPT. It will be sent to all those who give us the email ID. And Dr. Imran Sabri has mentioned that he is attending from Saudi Arabia. Dr. Imran, thank you for joining us. And it is heartening to note that our footprint is expanding across countries, which is nice. And we will request all those who are attending this program and who find this program of value to share this information with your colleagues so that we are able to reach to maximum people. Before I get on to the question answer session, it is my duty and also the responsibility to ask my co-faculty in all the programs that we have created so far. Madam Shinu Varghese is here with us. And Madam, if you have a point to make, please make in this, because this is a forum where we are attempting to benefit from each other. Shinu Varghese, ma'am, can you hear? Dr. MM, is the audio all right? I need to confirm this.
Yes, sir. Audio.
Okay. So I think Shinu madam is not able to hear. Let me take the questions. And madam, if you are can you hear Shinu madam?
Yeah, now it is audible.
Fantastic. So if you have any point to add to whatever we have said, it will be nice addition to the. It will be a nice addition.
Yeah, so you have covered everything. I am left with nothing to add on to it. A wonderful presentation you have done. It covered everything. In fact, nothing else to add. You can take up the questions.
Okay, ma'am. So we take the questions. Ms. Tejaswi Srikhande has asked the question: how can we define benchmark? Is it required cross-reference? Madam, I hope you have been able to hear. We have covered this aspect in the presentation, and you may look at this video, which will be uploaded on the Research Foundation's YouTube channel. So, how do we define benchmark? I think we covered this, so I'm not going to repeat it. Revati ma'am is asking, can you suggest what can be captured for clinical and managerial indicators? Well, madam, this question is huge. Huge because you asked me to tell you what all can be captured. My simple way of looking at it will be, look at the list of indicators which are mandated by the quality system or by the accreditation system. So you can have the list which is mandated by the NABH or by the ECOWAS, or the list that is mandated by the JCI. So those are the indicators which invariably will belong to the clinical and the managerial domains. Okay, a lot of people have asked for sharing the PPT. It will be shared, so that's not an issue. Let me see what more questions are there. Okay, Dr. Vikas Rameshwar Pandey has asked how we will get other hospital data to compare. Now, yes, that's a problem area. So you can look at the literature, because people publish papers. You will have literature that will have the studies published from various public institutions. I am personally aware that bigger institutions like AIIMS New Delhi or many medical colleges, institutions like Tata Memorial Hospital, many of these institutions, they publish their internal studies that are carried out, and those studies contain the benchmarks or the performance levels of those organizations. You can use that. It is a search that needs to be made to use which benchmark you are going to compare. In some of the Western countries, notably the NHS and many other institutions, they have a mandated requirement to have the public reporting of data. You can look at those websites and use the benchmarks that are there. The disadvantage of using the foreign data is that the organizations may not be comparable. So the workload may not be comparable, the resources may not be comparable, the kind of funding you have and they have may not be comparable. So sometimes that can become an issue. So, but there is no one source of getting the data to compare. I hope that answers your question. Dr. Pandey, are you able to hear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, so we have the next question is from Dr. D. Ramamohan. Very useful topics. Thank you, Dr. Ramamohan. We are delighted to know that you have enjoyed the presentation and also you find these topics relevant. Another request that I have is that if you have a specific topic on which we should be covering, please share that also, because it's a good idea to know what troubles are being faced, and we would like to cover that. We do some effort in figuring out and deciding the topic, and that is based on a lot of feedback that I get from various sources. But it's a good idea to get the topic. So please share the topics that you think are useful. Dr. M. Singh has asked, is any fixed number of KPI for each department, or it depends on the hospital or the accreditation body? So these questions I am reading from the chat box, so you can also open the chat box and see where this question is written and who has asked. Dr. M, typically the accreditation bodies will fix the benchmarks or the KPIs that they need the hospitals to monitor. However, those benchmarks are generally of a minimalistic nature, which means what is minimum required for maintaining the accreditation that they are telling you to monitor. But you will also need to monitor a lot of KPIs internally for your own consumption, for your own performance improvement or quality improvement activities. So the fixed number is what is given by the external agencies, and then what you add to it is your internal requirements. Dr. Ashok Sharma, Dr. MM, I hope we have been able to address your issue.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thanks,
Dr. Ashok has asked what will be the proportion of managerial and clinical indicators in the overall number of KPIs. Well, Dr. Ashok, this is defined. If you look at NABH 4th edition, they had a total of 72 indicators. And out of that 72, if I remember correctly, the proportion was, I think, 40-32, something like that. And they also had 8 indicators which were to be added by the hospital on their own. So 4 clinical and 4 managerial. So that kind of gave a proportion 60-40. But this is not a fixed number. Each hospital will get to figure out what is important for them. The requirements of the accreditation system will be fixed. So the NABH 5th edition tells you a number of indicators, and those generally will be almost equal. I mean 50, 55, 45, or maybe 60, 40 in terms of percentages. Okay, so Dr. Sharma, I hope I have addressed your issue. Next question is from Dr. Vikas. How will we get other hospital data? I think we've covered that.
Yeah. This is the repeated question.
Ravindranath has asked for presentation. That will be given to you, Dr. Ravindranath. Not an issue. Okay, are we repeating? Madam Revati has said, can you suggest what can be captured for clinical and managerial? I think we addressed this. Dr. M has asked, who is responsible for documenting the KPI? Now, I have covered in the development, those 2 slides where I was talking about the development of KPIs, that we have to define for each of these indicators as to who will be responsible for capturing the denominator, capturing the numerator, And then we also have to define who will be responsible for monitoring it. Now, documenting a KPI is something that can be done centrally. So you may have a quality team person who is, let us say, quality manager, or quality executive, or quality head, whatever name you have given. Or you can assign somebody, in a lot of hospitals, you have a clinician, a doctor who is responsible for the quality function. So this person can be made accountable for documenting the KPIs. So the monitoring is done by various people in the organization, and this is one central nodal point where all the KPIs are documented. I hope that answers the question.
Sir, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Madam Pramila has said I could not attend beginning half. So, Madam, you can watch this video on the Research Foundation's YouTube channel that you can search on the, not only on the YouTube, but we also share in the WhatsApp groups. So I'm sure you'll come to know this channel.
Thank you,
What
sir.
is the number of KPI
Thank you, sir.
NABH accreditation? Chandresh ji has asked this question. So, Mr. Chandresh, the minimum number is defined by the NABH in their 5th edition. There is a free document which you can download from the NABH website. I think the number is 36, if I remember correctly. I don't address the accreditation specific requirements, so therefore I will have to really check what number they have said. But this is an information which is freely available on the NABH website. Please go there, download the NABH standard and the KPI that is included there, and you can see what minimum KPI is. They have got it. Nageshwar Rao has.
Hello.
Okay, you said thank you very much. Somebody is trying to say something, Chandresh ji? Anything?
Sir, yes, sir. I searched on the website, sir, NABH website, but I could not find this KPI.
Okay, so what I will do is, instead of giving you those KPI, I'll give you the NABH website link. We will share, and then you'll get this. Okay, you can download directly from there.
Oh, thank you, sir. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you, sir.
I'll request you to record what you are asking in the chat box, because I'm going to take a print of this. So I don't want to miss what you have asked for it. Okay, so please do enter in the chat box here. Okay, so Dr. Nageshwar Rao wants the. He tried to provide national level quality indicators benchmark system so that all the hospitals will come to know and compare to strengthen them. Dr. Nageshwar, this is something which is actually noble. Unfortunately, in our country, we do not have a central agency which is mandated or assigned the task of collecting this data. There are multiple issues related with this, because they will be, if such a thing was to happen, then there will be public reporting of the data. How many people want to really share the data? I mean, if your hospital has a sentinel event in your setup, will you be willing to give this data out to the public and say that okay, we have this sentinel event? So there are complex issues. I am aware that NABH at some point in time in past was attempting to create such a system, but to my knowledge, that system is not in existence so far. Maybe in future it will come up. Typically, these things happen when the government or the administration mandates it, but we do not have any such mandate. In fact, the national program for patient safety in the hospital itself is in a very rudimentary stage. So, to get this kind of a mandated reporting, well, as of now, it is not possible. Maybe very soon we will have this. Dr. Anish Ravindranath has said, can there KPI benchmarks available for outsourced services? Well, I think this question I answered for someone else little earlier. You will have to search for benchmarks, what is applicable in your setting. For outsourced services, when we talk of non-medical services, security, laundry, F&B, these benchmarks you can straight away pick up from other industries, and those should be easy to find. But when you say outsourced laboratory services, outsourced imaging services, outsourced anesthesia services, now I doubt whether the benchmarks are available of that kind. So I don't know. I'm not very sure really whether we have those benchmarks available. The non-medical, yes, you will still find the benchmarks which are there. Tejaswini ji has asked if any cross-reference required for benchmark, can I mail you? And you are welcome to mail any question that you want to ask. But cross-reference, well, it is entirely your internal decision whether you want to use a particular benchmark for the purpose of comparison. What one practice which I can share here on this platform, and one practice that I have found that a lot of people they have implemented in their respective hospitals is that you figure out the benchmark for yourself. So now this may not be an ideal situation, but in the absence of any other benchmark, this happens for many things. This happens to be the only way out. So you figure out a benchmark. You say, looking at your own staffing norms, your own staffing duties, your own resource situation, your own workload situation, and seeing all this, the level of functioning, the level of training, the expertise level of your staff. You would look at all this and then figure out a benchmark that you want to have for each. For example, wait time. Now, if your emergency is not very busy, you can say that the benchmark for wait time in emergency is 5 minutes. But if you are a large hospital, busy hospital, public hospital, you have large number of patients coming to you, then you will have to have a little more realistic benchmark. What is important to remember here is that your benchmark should add value to your work. So if they are unrealistic, then they are not adding value to it. Madhu HD has asked difference between qualitative and quantitative. I think we covered that. I don't want to repeat it here. We have already exceeded our time, and there is another live session that is awaiting. So I'll have to wind it up. Dr. Imran Sabri has asked, can you suggest some book which guide us to the list of KPIs for medical colleges and hospitals? Dr. Imran, the good way to look at it will be that you look at the KPIs which are mandated by the accreditation bodies like NABH in India or JCI or the JACO in US or maybe the NHS or other countries. I am aware that in Saudi Arabia you are in the process of building accreditation body, and I'm sure in the initial stages they will have to adopt the benchmarks from other organizations and systems. So you can have a look at that. But the best way forward is that you create your own KPIs. They will really help you because while you're in the process of creating KPIs, it is also a huge learning opportunity for the staff to know about KPIs and to know about how to do this and to learn more about the measurements. So creating has a lot of fringe benefits, and one of the fringe benefits is that the people learn how to handle this. Okay, Revati Madam has said we need a session on ethics committee. I will have to get some experts on ethics committee. Yes, it can be done. Good point. We will note this. Suman Lotra has said session on the stress and strategies is okay. What could be the other challenges in doing benchmarks with other hospitals? How often should we do a comparison survey and should maintain this documentation? Vidyaji, at this stage, my recommendation will be, if you are beginning a quality system, then my recommendation will be to just follow what the established benchmarks in the systems are already there. You can use JCI, or NQuas, or the standard benchmarks which are there. Just follow one system and persist with it. That will lead to more benefit. How often should you measure? Then I think we need a separate, a session and a separate, because this is a little longish answer. I'll try to answer this in an email to you. So if you share your email, we will try to see that we can answer this question to you. Basically, time constraints, so I'm trying to restrict the length of my answers. Madhu ji has asked difference between qualitative, quantitative. I think I'll cover this, Madhu, on the email, because I'm not able to give time. There's another session which is waiting. Okay, Jyoti ji has asked to add to the Rafa group. Dr. MM, please note, I think I have shared her number with you earlier too. Please add her to the WhatsApp groups or the Telegram group. I think that Telegram group is now building. Eventually, we will do away with WhatsApp groups. So Telegram group will be the one that will be there for everyone. Link to our website. Yes, I will share. Chandresh ji, that link I will share. Difference between qualitative, quantitative. Okay. Okay, Mr. Madhu, I will answer this to you separately. Running short of time, really, I need to close this. So I'll answer this directly to you. Please share your email ID. Mr. Madhu HD, please share your email ID. Okay. Peer review can be considered as a quality indicator. Abhijit ji has asked this question whether peer review can become a quality indicator. Yes, provided you convert that peer review into some number which can be used for comparison. If it is qualitative, then it will be a very, very subjective comparison and it may not help you. So convert that comparison in peer review into a number and then do that comparison. Okay, there is Siddhartha Bhunia has asked for adding to the WhatsApp group. MM, please note this. I will also share this information with you, Dr. MM. What is the Revati Madam has asked? Can you sort the difference between QIP and KPI? Are both same? Madam, both are not same. I will answer this question separately to you, and maybe we will contrast and compare KPI and QIP. KPI is key performance indicators. QIP is quality improvement project or quality improvement program. So there are two different things we will cover. Dr. Basant Gupta has asked the KPI in the risk management. I'll give you some examples, Dr. Basant, directly on the email. Unfortunately, we are really running short on time. So these answers, when I give to specific people, I'll share these with others. That will be possible. Or maybe in the next session, I will take up the remaining questions of this session so that we are able to address. Okay, the remaining are the ones which are asking for adding to the WhatsApp group. Okay, so I think we have covered. Dr. Anand, please note people who are wanting to get into the WhatsApp or the Telegram group, they can be added there, or they can be sent the invitation link to join. Okay, there is one point. Suman Luthra ji has said the session on the stress management. Well, madam, it is not a direct hospital administration topic, but we'll try to get someone who can speak authoritatively on the stress management on this forum. So I think with this, I need to close this. Yes, clarification on the KPI and QIP, Revati Madam will come to you. So I need to really close this. Thank you very much, and thank you everyone for joining this session. It was lovely, a lot of interaction, and we need to really restrict this to 1 hour. We have exceeded by 13 minutes. Basically because I also took some time to explain things, and there are questions that needed explanations. But thank you very much, and please do join next Saturday, 3 p.m. on the National Grand Round on the Hospital and Healthcare Administration on the topic end of life care. Thank you very much. Shinu Madam, thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Rakesh.
Thank you for coordinating.
Dr. Rakesh, this is Dr. Imran Sabri. Thank you very much
Thank
for
you very
this
much
nice
for joining
and
from there.
very nice and informative lecture, sir. We have been enlightened by your lecture, and I'm working on the quality of the medical colleges here. Now I will be more interested in establishing hospital here. So,
Okay, so
now we will see, and we will be benefited by this information. Thank you, sir. So nice.
do collaborate with us directly also. You have the email ID of this organization. You can, in fact, I did not share it today. I'll just share it.
Yes, sir. Yes.
So, there is a possibility that we
Yes,
could.
sir. I have given my contact details. I
Yes.
have posted my contact details. Yes,
Okay,
sir.
so let us see how
Thank
we
you, sir.
can
Thank
we can work together. Thank you, everyone. Thank you very
Yes,
much.
sir. Yes.
I'm going to
Thank you.
close this session now. Shinu ma'am, thank you very much.